All right, you guys, as you can see by the thumbnail, I'm back with another one. And let me just say something off the rip. I am not a Dodgers fan. However, I wore this shirt because there were a lot of you that didn't think that I'd do it. I'm grown, man. I'm gonna wear whatever color I want to wear. I don't trip off all that stuff. I'm gonna wear the Dodgers. I'm gonna wear the Giants. I'm gonna wear all of them because I got all the teams. The Texas teams, the Astros, Oakland. I wear them all. I don't discriminate. So I'm banging my Dodger blue shirt tonight for the LA Dodgers, and it is what it is. So, anyways, let me get straight into it. This story right here that I'm about to get into, it's about an individual that a lot of you guys have heard a lot of stories about. I've told you guys a couple stories. I know that there's quite a few that are out there right now on YouTube. And, just recently, this individual, Fly from San Fer, basically his past ended up catching up to him. He was having a lot of his people hurt. A lot of them were getting crossed up. A lot of them, he was putting on the other side. So, he everything he touched, he was destroying. He put a lot of people in bad standings. He had a reputation for, being heavy-handed, putting a lot of people, in protective custody. And, eventually it caught up to him. So he was one of the ones that was pushing a foul agenda out there, dirty cutthroat politics, and it eventually caught up to him. So recently, I don't remember what prison it was, but they ended up sending 2 torpedoes at him, and they whacked him. They killed him on one of the yards. I don't know if it was a level 4. I don't know. Level 3. I don't even remember what prison it was. You guys know this just happened just recently. Anyways, so it ended up catching up to him. And again, we're talking about a story that involves dope, clavo. Again, that seems to be the common denominator in all these stories. A lot of the guys that are mentioned in this story ended up getting cannibalized because they were following directions, but because, the dope wasn't coming in fast enough, the dope wasn't coming in the right way, or somebody didn't want to do it, or somebody, didn't want their family involved, or, somebody was opening the bag, they thought somebody was taking it, or they weren't getting enough. But at the end of the day, again, it all involved clavo, dope. And it doesn't matter who you are, how much blood you spilled. It doesn't matter how much status that you've accumulated over the years, what kind of reputation you got. If you stand in, if you stand in the way, or you end up interfering with clavo, it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody knows that everybody's expendable in this lifestyle, but that's the fastest way to get taken out nowadays. Dope is the priority across the board. So anyway, this story starts in 2004. So there's 2 Mexican mafia members that are involved in this story. Fly from San Fer, and then you got Lalo from Lomas. Lalo is briefly mentioned in this story. He was there in the county jail when a lot of this was happening. But this story is primarily about Fly, Mosca, and the things that he was doing in the county jail. Now, he ended up catching a case in 2004 for trying to kill an individual by the name of Wolfie. So basically, this individual, Wolfie from White Fence, was out there in an area that Fly considered to be his territory. Wolfie's out there, and he's representing himself to be a Mexican mafia member. He's telling people that, that he's taxing, that it's on behalf of Mosca, and that, he's taking over on behalf of Fly until Fly makes it back out. So he's telling everybody that he's out there collecting taxes. He's out there slinging dope on Fly's name. People are out there, they're complying because Fly, at one time had a lot of influence out there in that area. They considered him, that was the big homie in that area. So when Wolfie was out there telling everybody that he was a big homie and that, he had Fly's blessings, nobody questioned it. They started paying him taxes. They started selling dope for him. And, it was business as usual. But in Fly's place, Wolfie was out there doing it. So Wolfie's out there representing himself to be a big homie. He's encroaching on Fly's territory. And, he's telling everybody, look, I'm out here briefly for, just for a minute. Fly is away on a parole violation right now. At that time, Fly had a year parole violation. He was coming back out. He had been down already at that point for 4 or 5 months. He still had about 6 months to go. So, he told people that he was just out there briefly and he was holding it down for Fly. So he's encroaching on his area. He's collecting taxes. He's stepping on Fly's toes. And at this time, there was a lot going on out there. There was a lot going on the streets. So when Wolfie, when he got out there was so much going on at that point that people didn't even question, his status. They figured, nobody would come into this area and represent themselves as being, part of Fly's crew or taking Fly's crew over, representing themselves as a big homie, but nobody has balls that big. But really what it was is nobody that was really tightly connected or deeply connected with Fly was out there at that time. So at this time, there was a lot going on out there on the streets. So, when Wolfie gets out there and he's collecting taxes, he's out there in the streets and, carrying himself like he's a made member, there was so much going on at that point on the streets that nobody even questioned him. Nobody got on the phone, made any phone calls. Nobody, had the sense of mind to check. Nobody checked his status. Nobody did nothing. They just embraced him and, started paying taxes the same way they did when Fly was out there. This was just somebody else that supposedly was working on Fly's behalf. And the one thing that Wolfie did was he was dropping all the right names. All the people that were closely associated with Fly, he had all their names. He was name dropping. And that's how he was able to establish a little bit of influence, some clout by name dropping. All the individuals he mentioned were all righteous movers and shakers. They were the individuals that were out there on the streets making shit happen when Fly was out there. Because Wolfie was out there dropping all the right names and representing himself as if he was a Mexican mafia member, he was able to navigate undetected for a while. Matter of fact, he was able to do it the entire time that Fly was gone on his parole violation. So all the people that were out there in that area, they resumed normal program. All the kickbacks that they were accustomed to paying Fly, they started turning those over to Wolfie. So Wolfie's out there collecting all this money. He's doing his thing. He's got control of the whole area. It is a ballsy ass move. This dude came out there. I don't even know what his real status was. I don't know if he was a dropout, if he was just somebody that had a death wish, but he's in this guy's territory, encroaching on his territory, taxing his people, collecting money that doesn't belong to him. And he stayed out there for the long haul. He stayed out there until Fly would end up paroling. So, it takes some balls to do something like that. The one thing that really worked in Wolfie's favor, though, at that time was that nobody that really had seasoning that really worked with Fly was out there at that time. You had a lot of people that worked with them. A lot of them were low-level associates, a lot of females, a lot of, young homies, but you didn't have none of his righteous crew. Nobody that was closely, associated with him, that was really a part of his inner circle. Because just thinking about it, if there was somebody that would have been out there, like I'll use myself as an example. If I get out and there's somebody out there and somebody just pops up and says that they're working for this individual and, everything goes to him now, I might have the sense of mind to get in my channel, or I'm going to reach out to somebody and be like, hey, who is this dude? Especially if I don't know him. If I never met this dude, I've never heard about him. He's never came through when the homie was out here. And now he's out here in this area claiming to be, somebody that's working on behalf of the homie. I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to write some letters. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to run a background check on who this individual is, at least that much. But nobody did none of that. They just continued to work with this guy. I would think, though, that, the one thing that would make it suspect is that this individual was from White Fence. He's like completely out of his jurisdiction. There's plenty of, sureños, there's plenty of neighborhoods right there in the valley that are more than capable of stepping up and collecting that money or, working that area on behalf of Fly. Why would, somebody come all the way over from White Fence, completely out of their area, out of their jurisdiction, out of nowhere, and, just start working for them? that right there would have raised red flags for me. But again, it was the perfect storm. It was a perfect situation for him at that time. And he must have been somewhat of a savvy individual. He must have known that this is an opportune time for me right now to go ahead and infiltrate, take advantage of this, get all this money, get in, get out. And it was part of his plan, obviously. Because if anybody would have been working in that capacity, they would in that area, they would have been the ones collecting the money. So fast forward, Fly, he does a parole violation. He does a year, he's gone, and he starts to hear about this individual, Wolfie. He hears about it right before he gets ready to parole. And now people are starting to come around. They know Fly is getting ready to step back out. So everybody's they're firing everything up, getting ready for the big homie to come back out and, resume program. So these individuals out there on the streets, they also hear about Wolfie. And they communicate to Fly at some point. Hey, do you want us, this individual that's been collecting this money, this guy that's running around representing himself as a big homie that's collecting, your tax money out here, that's collecting, dope money. Do you want us to take care of this individual? And Fly, he was so mad at this individual. He was so offended by somebody that had the nerve to come up into his area and just start collecting his money that he told him, you know what, now stand down. Stand down. I'm getting ready to step back out. I want to see who this dude is. So just go ahead, let him do his thing. Let him continue to do what he's doing. I'll be out, whatever, the next couple of weeks. And we'll take care of it when I touch down. So like I said, Fly is furious. He doesn't know this individual, never has heard of him, don't know nothing about him. But one thing's for sure, he's gonna find out. And I'm sure Fly wanted to find out if there was actually somebody that authorized this guy to come out into his territory and collect money, or if this dude was just acting on his own accord. And the other thing I'm sure that he couldn't wait to find out is where all this money is now. Where it's at, how much he collected, all that good stuff. So Fly goes on a rampage. The other thing I'm sure Fly was upset about is, I'm sure he was locked up. He's making plans for, when he touches back down, and, all this money in his mind, it's all accumulating out there. This is money that's backed up. All these kickbacks, the taxes, all the people that are out there selling dope, the dope dealers, the dope runners on the streets, all that money, it's all backed up. So he's got a good kickstart when he gets back out. And then to come to find out that this individual is out there, he's already collected it, and he's still out there running around, he's still collecting his money, he's taxing people using Fly's name. I'm sure he probably talked to himself. He's probably out there. If he was in Pelican Bay, I guarantee you he used to do what I used to do when I used to get mad. I used to go out on the yard and walk laps, just circles, hundreds of circles, talking shit to myself, plotting and planning on individuals that I was praying I would run into those individuals once I got out there on the streets. How many of you done that? You guys, I know a lot of you that have been to Pelican Bay, the shoot program. Maybe you find out Sancho got you, or you find out somebody disrespected, a family member or something like that. Tell me, man, I know I'm not the only one that's done that. Tell me how many times you went out there on that yard and you walk laps. There's nobody out there but you, your name echoes so you can hear yourself real good. How many times you walked out there just walking in circles, plotting on this individual, like you were actually talking to him, you were rehearsing it. I know I wasn't the only one. So anyways, that's money gone. He's not going to get that money. So all these things, he knows prior to getting out, and you can imagine how upset he was. Fly was already the type of individual that, he was known for putting a lot of people in bad standings. He was known for having a lot of people whacked. A lot of people feared him, even though he wasn't he didn't have an intimidating presence. Looking at him, it was just him, his history, who he was, the things that he's done in the past. That's what people feared. So, again, he gets out, he's out there, he's running around with some of his hitters. They're looking for Wolfie. And apparently, he's with a youngster out there that knows where to find Wolfie. So Fly and his team, they got a location on Wolfie, and they go over there. They go over there to this location. This is supposedly where he's living at. It's an apartment complex. They get over there, and Fly, he doesn't have nobody go over there with him. He's like, "Yeah, I got this." He's like, just wait in the car. I'll be right back. So Fly goes over there to the apartment that Wolfie's supposedly staying in. He knocks on the door. And a conversation ensues. So I'm assuming what the conversation was. Obviously, I wasn't a fly on the wall, but I imagined it went something to the effect of, Fly asked him, he's like, "Hey, are you Wolfie? Are you the big homie that's been collecting money out here on the streets on behalf of Fly?" And I imagine Wolfie told him, yep, that's me. So at this point, Fly pulls a gun out and he tries to dome him. He misses. I don't want to say he hit him. I don't know if he actually shot him. I don't know if he shot at him. If I was to speculate, that would be adding tapatio to this story. I don't know. What I do know is that Fly went over there. He tried to kill Wolfie, and he failed. Wolfie, he ended up living after that encounter that they had at his apartment. So at some point, again, I don't know the details, but at some point later after this takes place, Fly ends up getting arrested. He goes to jail for that incident right there, for attempting to kill Wolfie from White Fence. So now Fly's in the county jail. He's in the jail. He's in high power. So Fly's there. He's fighting his case, and Lalo from Lomas is in the jail as well. Fly's got the jail. Lalo's doing his thing, but he's kind of letting Fly take a lead role. Lalo, he figures that when he leaves the jail, he'll go ahead and take the jail over. He'll be collecting the taxes. He'll be moving dope. He'll implement his influence. The one thing that baffles me when I was hearing this story for the first time is why Wolfie didn't get suspicious when all of a sudden some cat pops up at his door, whether he knew Fly or not. He's out there. He knows that he's doing something he's not supposed to be doing. He's out there collecting Mexican Mafia taxes. That's a violation. You're asking for, that's a death sentence. But, some individual pops up at his door that he doesn't know, and he acknowledges that he is Wolfie and that he's the one out there collecting money on behalf of Fly, and admits it. That's what I don't understand right there. That just goes to show you how naive Wolfie must have been. I mean, on one hand, he obviously was smart enough to go up into his territory and collect all that money and do his thing. But on the flip side, something like that, to happen, somebody pop up at your door like that, and he should have been out there with his head on a swivel. He should have been out there watching his moves, with his ear to the ground, making sure that nobody was getting a drop on him. Eventually, he had to have known it was going to come. He couldn't just stay set up in that territory and continue to, collect money and continue to represent himself as a Mexican Mafia member and have all these people under him selling dope, kicking money back to him. At some point, he had to know it was going to have to come to an end. So Mosca, he stays in the county jail from 2004 to 2007. He stays there for a good minute fighting the case. He's there. He's in high power. And, he's running the county jail as best he can from high power. I want to say when Fly first got to the county jail, Lalo, he wasn't there when he first got there. Lalo would end up getting there, and I think Lalo would end up spending about 2 years with him in the jail before Fly ended up leaving, and then Lalo took it over. But he was there for about 2 years with him. So Fly's there, he's in the county jail. I'm sure he started to assert his influence. He finds out who's there. He builds up his, his chain of command, whatever. And, he's got all his contacts and his channels, everything set up. He's trying to establish, his dope and his taxes and all that good stuff. There's an individual in there by the name of Oso from Azusa. And also, he was a Sureño that just got his hustle on. He was, somebody that was respected the Mexican Mafia. He was always trying to, do whatever he could to work with them, work under them. Somebody that believed in the Mexican Mafia. He was subservient to the Mexican Mafia's dictates. So he's a Sureño in the jail. He's functioning. And, he's got an attorney. He's got a lawyer. He's an attorney that he used to be before he went into private practice as an attorney, a criminal defense attorney. Before he went into private practice, he was actually a district attorney. Then he went into private practice, which happens a lot. A lot of attorneys will start out as just a regular attorney that, a criminal defense attorney, and then they'll transfer over to a prosecutor. Or sometimes you have a prosecutor that will, originally they start their career out prosecuting cases, and then at some point they see how foul the job is and how much they don't like it, or how much they don't like prosecuting cats, and then they end up going into private practice. So Oso's there. He's got this prominent attorney, and this attorney, he's with the business. He gets it also, and he tells him, "Hey, put me on, man. I'm ready to make some money. I'm ready to run some dope in. Put me on, but I need you to hook me up with some resources out on the streets. I'm willing to bring in dope. I'm willing to bring Glavo in, whatever you guys need. But, I need you to hook me up with something as well." He wanted to make money. Bottom line is that attorney wanted to make money. That's the perfect scenario right there. Usually you got to flip an attorney or flip if you're working, you got a CO that's working under you. You got to manipulate them, flip them, get in their mind, and, basically convince them to start bringing in dope for you. But he's got an attorney that's getting at him. He propositions him and tells him, "Hey, put me on. I need to make some money, some extra money besides what I'm making," even though I'm sure he was probably making a killing. You know how lawyers do it. They make a lot of money. But he tells also, he wants him to plug him in with the right people, and he'll start bringing in the dope. But at that time, also wasn't really in a position to plug in that attorney. He didn't have the kind of contacts out there on the streets that the attorney wanted. The attorney wanted also to plug him in with somebody that could get him like 2 kilos of cocaine. That boy wanted some coca. That attorney wanted some blow. He wanted some coca, some nose candy. So, he didn't want a little. That fool wanted a couple kilos. So, also he doesn't have the contacts. He doesn't have the resources at that time. But what he does is he gets at another Sureño that he knows, somebody that I'm sure was probably a baller out there on the streets, and he tells him, he's like, "Hey, bro, check it out. I got this attorney. This cat, he's willing to run dope in for us, on pretty much on any level. This guy, he's with the business. But, I need somebody to hook him up with, a couple kilos out there on the streets, and this fool will run it in for us." So this individual he gets at, he tells him, he's like, "I got you, bro. I got this. I got somebody out there I can line him up with. It's good, man. You know what I mean? So we'll work out all the details. But, let me make a couple phone calls. Let me get at my people and set it all up. And then, we can make arrangements for you to send them over there. And, we'll take it from there." So that's what they do. But as far as the attorney, it's common for defense attorneys, a lot of them, just individuals that are in the courtroom all day, to be coke addicts, straight up, because they're working a job where they work long hours. They need to stay awake, and they need that good stuff that'll get them all ramped up, revved up, when they're fighting the case, they can get up there and get into some good verbal fist fights. You know what I'm saying? So he wants a couple kilos. So the attorney, he's obviously, he's been thinking about this for a while, and he tells also, he's like, "Look, man, this is the way we can do it. You hook me up with a couple kilos out there on the streets." And I'm sure he wasn't asking him to just give him the kilos. I'm sure he was going to buy them. So if any of you were thinking that this was a trade for doing it, that's not the case. Nobody's just going to give somebody 2 kilos. So I'm sure the attorney, he bought them, but, he didn't have those kind of resources. So, but the attorney told also, he's like, "Look, man, this is the way we can do it right here. Once I get my plug," he's like, "then I can meet you guys at, whatever courthouse you're going to be at whatever times you're going to be there. I can pull you out, and that's when we'll do the drops right there." A lot of the times, when you go to court, right before, you guys see that, a lot of the times when you go to court, right before court, it's common for an attorney to pull you out and, to talk about the game plan of the case, to maybe show you some new reports that he got, or to just give you a briefing on what's going to happen today in court. So it was a good plan, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. Him to pull these guys out so that he could talk to them before they go into court. It's perfectly, it's a normal thing that happens all the time. The other thing about it is, most of the windows over there in the interview rooms, they all got those little slots. They all got the little slots so that, if your attorney pulls you out and you're visiting with them, they can just open up the slot and slide the paperwork right through, a pen or whatever it is that they're giving you. There's a little slot right there that, and that's where the dope was going to come through, that slot. So that was basically the plan right there. And it doesn't get any better than that. That was the plan. You got an attorney that's going to come up prior to, it doesn't get any better than that. You got an attorney that's willing to come up on your court date, that will pull you out, already have the dope, give you the dope right there, and boom, you know what I mean? It's nothing that it's not like you got to go in a visiting room and you got to make it through the metal detector, or, you got to be careful about making a drop or the pass. You don't got to worry about none of that stuff, because, it's an attorney. They're already trusted with, they're already given a level of trust. And, you find an attorney that's willing to break that trust. It's the perfect situation. So they start doing their thing. So everything's lined up. Also, don't have to do no legwork. He doesn't have to soften up his attorney. He doesn't have to manipulate. All he's got to do is just point this guy in the right direction, link these guys up, and basically just take a back seat. And that's what would end up happening anyway, because once also hooked the attorney up with this other Sureño, one of his boys, that that kind of put also out the picture anyway. There was no other purpose for him to really be involved. So once he hooked up his boy with the attorney, now the attorney starts pulling this guy out. He starts pulling him out. They hatched their plan, exactly how it's going to go down. I'm sure he had a way of getting the court. I mean, he could just call him. You can call him on the recorded phone and tell me, I got a court date on this date, or, this guy got a court date, this guy got a court date, and, it's in department, whatever the department was, go over there and see this guy. So that part of it is easy, and it's easy enough to where you're not even going to get detected like that, because it sounds like it's real. They're really talking about real cases, real people that have real court dates. So there was no concern about, detection, or, the gang intel officers that might have been listening to think that anything out of the ordinary was going on in those phone calls. It's an attorney, and these guys are reaching out. So once they get everything up and running, this attorney, he's bringing in black tar heroin. He's bringing in meth, lighters, tobacco, handcuff keys, whatever they can think of to bring in within reason. They start bringing it in, and it starts coming in like clockwork. They got Glavo, and they're making a lot of money. They're bringing in all this Glavo. At the same time, he's still required to kick back to the casa, to, whatever the percentage was, a third, 25%, 50%, half, whatever it was, he's still required to kick back to the house. So, he's breaking Mosca off at the same time. Every time they hit, he's breaking him off, and they're sending it to high power. Mosca's happy. All these Glavos coming in, and, these guys are hitting, but anybody that knew Mosca, they understood how he worked. He was the type of individual that he wanted to know everything about everything that was going on, how it was working, how it was all being done. He was the type of individual that liked to micromanage, and, he was kind of hands-on. He was the type of individual that wanted to be involved, or at least have knowledge of everything that was happening in his household. So Mosca's happy, but the frequency of it starts to perk his suspicion. He's wondering, like, where's all this dope coming from? How are these cats hitting? There's got to be more of this. And again, it's never enough. There's never enough. The demand, it's always going to be, bigger. You're going to want more. Give them a little bit more, you're going to want more. The demand is that's how it always happens. There's never going to be a situation where they're just going to be content with just that. That appetite, it's hungry. It's a hungry giant, man. The more you feed it, the more hungrier it gets. And that's what happened. He basically wanted to know the ins and outs of how they were bringing that in. It's like, you know what? It's all good. And, you know, it's all love, but how you guys doing it? How's all this coming in? You know, I want to know how it's being brought in. So I'm sure this individual, he communicated it back to Mosca, told him, look, you know, we got an attorney in pocket and this guy's willing to bring it in. And this is how we've been doing it. So Mosca's like, man, that's a good situation, but check this out. This is how we need to start doing it. And again, like I told you guys, micromanaging, hands-on. He wanted to be more involved. And, you know, this is a classic example of all these other stories. You guys hear the same thing. Somebody's hitting clavo and it's never enough. Forget an ounce. Let's get 20 ounces. Forget 20 ounces. Let's get 50 ounces. Always pushing the envelope. Always, you know, asking for more. And when you start to get greedy like that and you start exploiting, you know, a good thing, that's when somebody always ends up getting busted or it always ends up getting fucked off somehow. And eventually that's what would happen. So what they do is after a certain amount of time that this attorney, you know, after he's running this in for a while, what they do is they orchestrate a plan to where instead of this attorney just pulling out this one Sureño, the main individual he was dealing with, now what Mosca wants him to do is he wants him to pull out 4 or 5 other individuals at the same time in different places, different courthouses, different places in the jail. And he wants to start bringing it in through all these different guys. And you guys got to remember, he's in high power. He's in high power. So his, you know, his movement and his access, it's very limited. You know, so the more clavo that's out there, the more housing units, the more places that the county jail has dope, it serves him a purpose because this will give him more opportunities, you know, to get it. Somebody else over here has a way to get to him, or, you know, he ends up going to court with this individual and he's got it. So it benefits the house, but it benefits Fly as well. And I'm sure that was his intended purpose, was to saturate the county jail as much as he could and to get, you know, as much back there to him as he possibly could. I mean, but seriously, do you guys see a common thread here from the stories that I told you about in the past with Osito and with Thumper and, you know, some of these other guys that started bringing in dope with the paisa, the phones? You know, it's never enough. And then, you know, certain individuals, when you let them know that you got a good gig going on, that you got, you know, this setup and it's working this way, they want to put their hands on it and destroy it. Instead of doing it like that, let's bring in, you know, instead of bringing in 2 or 3, let's bring in 50 or 60. And again, that's when you get greedy like that, that's when things start happening. That's when you start fucking it up. But, you know, just to touch on that again right there, that part of it, it always ends up being something outrageous. When you talk about bringing in more and more and more and more, that's why you end up getting a lot of individuals that start to backpedal. They, you know, it starts to get out of hand and too crazy where they're like, hey, you know, I don't want to do it no more. Or, you know, my lady's tripping out now. She doesn't want to do it. She's tripping. She won't even answer the phone for me. Or, you know, individuals are like, man, you know, my connection shutting down on me, and whatever the case is. But, you know, because, you know, these heavy hands are put on them, and, you know, these guys that backpedal or have, you know, family that are like, you know what, man, you know, I don't want to do it no more. Their wives are like, you know what, you know, this is getting too much, and this is getting out of hand, and, you know, I don't mind bringing it a little bit, but I'm not going to keep doing this. And, you know, when people are getting caught up, or they see they're about to get caught up, and they want to backpedal or they want to stop because they feel the heat, then they become targets. They become targets because, you know, now it turns into a situation where now they're getting in the way of the house, you know, the money, the financial gain, or, you know, they're purposely sabotaging. You know, they don't want to do it. They can assist the household, but now they, you know, they want to, for whatever reason, they want to stop. and it has an adverse effect on the house. And that's how they spin it. So it happens all the time. It's happened in a lot of these stories, the same thing. So caution gets thrown to the wind, and now it turns into a situation where instead of one guy bringing it in, now there's 5 or 6 guys in different parts of the jail that are bringing it in. And honestly, in the beginning, it actually started working. It worked. They had certain individuals selected in different parts of the jails. There's 3 jails over there. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But they had certain individuals that they trusted that were going to court. There were certain individuals that they had selected that were going to court. They were somebody that Fly trusted. Maybe they were either from his neighborhood or from his area out there, but he wanted to put people that he knew in these positions that he trusted, and that started to complicate things. As time went on, it would continue to complicate things even more. But in the beginning, they got 5 or 6 guys running it in, and it was working. They were making a shitload of money. Everybody's happy. They're making a shitload of money. Everybody's strung out. But this only goes on for so long. All good things must come to an end. But let me kind of explain this. So Fly, what he wanted to do is he wanted to expand his operation. He wanted to go global. I'm bullshitting. He didn't want to go global, but what he did was he wanted to expand the operation to cover like the entire county jail, the entire 3 county jails that are part of LA County Jail. And again, like I said, Fly being in high power, his movements were very limited. Anytime he ever left anywhere, he was always being escorted in, chains. So, I mean, when you think about it, common sense, the more dope that comes in, and the more people that Fly got's working under him that are trying to send him dope, the more dope he's going to have. And if multiple people are bringing it in, there's also multiple kickbacks. So what Fly wanted to do is he wanted to find people that would bring it in on every floor, on every facility throughout the entire jail. So the LA County Jail is broken up into 3 jails. You got the Twin Towers, you got the regular downtown MCJ, and then you got Wayside, the Pitches Detention Center. So it's 3 separate facilities that make up that one jail. It's a big ass jail. So again, what Fly wanted to do is he wanted to have somebody in all 3 of these jails, in all areas, as many areas as possible, bringing it in. This would have required, different courthouses. It would have required different times and obviously different runners of bringing it in. And like I said, for a brief minute, it worked. It was a plan that they orchestrated, and it worked. They were bringing it in and they were making a lot of money. But what ended up happening was whenever there was a lapse in court dates, like when somebody wouldn't go to court or, somebody's court date got postponed, whenever that would happen, Fly would get frustrated because obviously when that happens, nothing comes in on that day. It's a missed opportunity. They don't, it didn't come in from MCJ or, the Twin Towers. It didn't come in from over there on this date. So whenever that would happen, you would end up, you would get furious. You would get mad at the people that if your court date got postponed, then, he took it out on you. If, for whatever reason, they just kicked your court date back and you didn't even make it into the courtroom or whatever, then it fell on those individuals. And those were the ones that were feeling his wrath. He's got a steady influx of dope coming in from different people. Handcuff keys, dope, tobacco, lighters. It's coming from everywhere. But again, it's court. Things happen. They postpone court dates. They kick a court date back. Sometimes they don't even call you. Those types of things right there, when that would happen, Fly would throw a fit. He'd get mad and he'd be like, what the fuck happened? I was expecting something over there. But, what it was is it all fell back on communication. When that would happen, obviously, these guys didn't have enough time to reach out to Fly and tell him, hey, this court date got postponed. I mean, they didn't have no time to do that. So it was what it was. There's nothing that these guys could do. If their court date got kicked back, if their attorney, wanted to postpone it for whatever reason, there's nothing they could do about that. But eventually, these guys would end up getting hit. Fly would have these guys, he would have them hit. Again, the frequency of court dates is something nobody can control. They bring you to court when they have a date, or they postpone it. They're in complete control of that right there. That's something nobody can do nothing about that. Surely Mosca had to know this much himself. But me personally, what I think it was is, and I'm assuming, but I think it was more, the frustration was more out of, if dope doesn't come in, then obviously people are going to get sick. They're going to get dope sick. And if you're in the county jail and you're in somebody like Mosca's position, you're back there, you're getting loaded, you're all, you're strung out, and all this dope is coming in. It's coming in like clockwork, but then somebody misses a court date or something like that happens and it doesn't come in, and you got people sick back there. But if a situation like that happens, not only are they going to get frustrated, but they're going to get reckless. They're not going to care about, policies or rules or things like that. At the end of the day, dope didn't come in. I'm sicker than a motherfucker back here, and you fucked up. That's what it all comes down to. So the communication being hindered, that kind of threw off, the operation at certain times. Glavo wouldn't come in. So again, it got to the point to where, Mosca started to think that it had something to do with the reliability of some of these individuals. He only wanted certain guys to be selected that he either knew that, worked with them or from his area out there on the streets. He only wanted certain individuals selected that he felt like he could depend on. And that just complicated things even more. It always just didn't work out like that. He's stuck over there in high power. These guys are trying to do what they can to make sure that, he's fed, that he gets as much dope as he can back as they could possibly send him back there. But he's not out there to see the things that aren't working. Sometimes there's hiccups. Sometimes there's things that just don't happen. There's things that are just beyond your control. And that's what he wasn't understanding. So this is where he started to get reckless. So if he couldn't get you where he wanted, or, he couldn't get somebody to go to a specific courthouse, what he would do is he'd have somebody hit somebody so that they could pick up an ad charge and get to a specific courthouse, just so that they could fulfill his agenda, picking up another case. But I can believe it because, just thinking about it, if you're back there and you're sick, you're sick, that there's dope in the jail, and you get to a point where you start to get desperate, there's dope out there, but you're in an area where you ain't got no movement, you're stuck, you're gonna get reckless. You don't care about people's careers, you don't care about none of that shit. You're sick, you feel like shit, you're sweating, and the relief is right there, it's in the jail. So I can see that how he would start to make moves to have individuals hit so that they would come back there where he's at, or make reckless decisions so that dope, he'd have access at that dope. And that's what he was doing. Guys were getting hit just so he could get the dope. Guys were getting hit just so they would end up at certain courthouses where, other individuals would be at, so that they could bring it back there to him. Those are the kind of things that he was doing. I was even told that he would even have cats take off on the juras if it called for that, just so that they could end up back there in high power. He'd tell them, hey, pack it up and take off on take off on a jura or something. Get back here to high power where I'm at. So he was getting a lot of his people hurt. A lot of his people crossed up. He was putting a lot of people on the other side. And, when you heard about Mosca and some of the things that he was doing, these are the type of things that you'd hear about. These things right here, having, good, righteous sureños, having them whacked just so, he'd have access to getting to the carga that he wanted. And I don't believe that the desperation to get that carga was, just so that the household would become self-sustaining, self-solvent, that it was for canteen and shit like that. It was because, again, I believe it was because there were people back there that were sick. When Glavo don't come in, and you're waiting on it, you're there, and I know it's coming in today. Today's the day it's supposed to come in from, this part of the jail, and then it doesn't come in. You're beyond frustrated, beyond being livid. Now it's like it's time to roll some heads. It's time to get reckless. I don't even care, you know. So that's what was happening. So, you know, after a long period of time, this attorney, you know, he's out there, he's running this global in, he's running dope in for multiple individuals. They basically exploited them, they used them up, and you know, it got to the point where it was ridiculous. He was bringing in ridiculous amounts. The wrong people started hearing about it, and eventually he'd end up getting caught up. He'd end up getting caught up. The whole operation would end up getting shut down, and you know, that's what happened. You know, anytime you get too greedy or you exploit something, it ends up tanking out. You know, at some point, somebody tells on you, somebody ends up getting envious because they don't have it like you have it, or whatever the case might be. People get sloppy, COs, they start catching on to what's going on, and you know, eventually they get shut down, and that's what happened. The attorney ended up catching the case. He ended up losing, you know, his license. He got disbarred. Fly, on the other hand, basically, you know, he began to develop a reputation for being a tyrant, a parasite that was, you know, sucking the blood out of his own people, cannibalizing good sureños, righteous sureños. I'm sure there were a lot of reasons, a lot of other reasons besides just this story. There's a lot of stories out there like this one, but you know, at some point, enough was enough, and you know, they felt like Fly had done enough damage. His number came up, and they moved on him. And they sent two cats that obviously knew what they were doing. They hit him, and they ended up killing him. You know, don't get me wrong. Fly also had a reputation for being a righteous individual. He was, you know, he was respected by a lot of people out there in the valley, in his area out there. He had a lot of respect. A lot of people had a lot of love for him. You know, it's just he made some bad decisions. He made some bad calls over the years, and it would eventually catch up to him. But you know, again, the common denominator in all this, it's the clavo, it's the dope. That's the root of all the evil that, you know, everything else that happens, it's all because of that. You know, good people end up getting caught up in it, their careers get sabotaged, and it's a sad story. It's a sad thing, man, because some people do take their careers serious. For some of these leaders, when they put a green light on somebody or when they make a decision to have somebody whacked, it's done like a passing thought, just that fast. And a lot of the times there's not even a second thought about it. It's not even a conscious thought. But on the flip side of it, guys that take their career serious, guys that grew up in this, you know, in this culture, in the gang culture, just that fast, your career is over. Everything that you've worked for is gone. It hurts. It hurts. A lot of guys that end up on the other side know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, whether people agree with the gang philosophy or not, it is what it is. A lot of people never have a chance. They grow up from literally from the time they're in diapers, they're entrenched within that lifestyle. But, you know, for a lot of them, they end up getting caught up in bad politics. That's another common theme that you hear when you hear these stories. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story right here. You know, it's another one that has a lot of twists and turns to it, but hopefully I made it, you know, as concise and as understandable as I possibly could. You know, there's nothing complicated about telling these stories. And again, you guys see, I don't put no tapatio in it. I don't add no fluff. I give it to you guys the same way that I get them. But with that being said, I'm going to try to get out an inner demons for you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll get that done. I'm going to try to get some chapters out to you guys tomorrow as well. I got some more of these stories right here on the docket ready to go. So we're going to continue pushing out the content. Thank all of you guys for helping us, you know, get to 40,000. Our numbers are growing, you know, and this is something that we've been working for. So it's well deserved. We appreciate it. And again, you know, everybody that tapped into that insider video, that video is over 1 million. That's crazy. Too bad it wasn't on my channel. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one short. I will be back tomorrow with another story, whether it's an Inner Demons or a Mexican Mafia story, we shall see. You guys have a good night. It's Friday. Be safe out there. And with that said, this your boy B, and I'm out.